Here's what we're going to do just really quick, because in this next 90 minutes, we're going to talk about a lot of things. But we're going to have some fun while we do it, and you will have some interaction that you'll be having at your tables. So I know many of you are hopefully sitting with people you know, but if not, we're going to just do something really quick to make that work. So if you would just stand up for me. This is also for my gauge to see if you can follow instructions, which so far everybody's doing pretty good. Now what I want you to do is just pair up with somebody sitting next to you. If you don't know them, even better, but just pair up with somebody, and one of you raise your hand. Okay, that's good. We're following directions. Just a great person raising your hand. You get to go first. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to look to that person. I want you to pay them some sort of a compliment. Say something nice about them. I don't care, whatever it is, whatever comes to your mind. There you go. All right, now other person. Return the favor. Say something nice about that person, because it's really rude when it's a one-way street. Nobody likes that. There we go. And now if you would seal this newfound love and appreciation with a handshake, a hug, dap it up, kiss, I don't care, whatever you deem appropriate. Probably shouldn't kiss, though. I know there's some HR folks in the room. They don't like that either. And then you may sit down. Thank you. Awesome. I appreciate y'all doing that. Hopefully it felt good, because generally speaking, it feels good when people say nice things about you, right? Unfortunately, for at least part of the time here today, we're not going to do any of that, because we're going to talk about leadership in this new world, what it looks like today, how we hire and attract and retain talent, how we upskill the next generation of workforce. But what that means is that we're also going to have to talk about this whole generational conversation we're having in the workplace. And I know even just by me saying that, you guys are like, Matt, why are you even here? I read a book on this once. I know about the generations. I don't need to talk about it. And I get it. I totally get it. Everybody in this room has probably heard things like this, that today's workforce is vibrant and diverse, and that you need to be more accommodating and understanding and appreciative of their thoughts, feelings, and actions. And I'm here to tell you today, folks, I don't want to do any of that. It's not fun. Don't let the gray hair fool you. I'm a millennial. The only thing we care about is having fun. And Snapchat. Selfies. But if we're really being honest with ourselves, and everything we have to do in life, in every game we play, in every election we hold, in every decision that we make in business, there are winners and losers in those decisions. And I think we can agree on that. You're going to win some. You will also lose some. And that's okay. Hopefully you learn from the losses. But what that means, and what gets overlooked in this conversation, is that means some of the people you are working with, some of the people you have to deal with on a daily basis, some of your customers, the people coming to work for your organizations, some of them are losers. And that's what we're going to talk about today, okay? It's a lot more fun to do it. It's a lot more fun. I can sense some hesitancy, and it's okay. That's probably because you're good people. But trust me, I'm only going to ask you to do things today that you've already been doing for your entire life. I'm only going to ask you to indulge in the most basic stereotypes that we have about each other. Let me be very clear about stereotypes. Generally speaking, they're not good to have. I would encourage you in most cases to not hold them. They are often wrong. They can be hurtful. They're certainly not going to help you grow when you hold on to these beliefs. But when it comes to the stereotypes we have about age, every one of us in this room has them, and we hold on to them dearly. And again, because you're good people, some of you are like, Matt, I don't have stereotypes. I'm a good person. And you're right. You are a good person. But you're also a liar, and I'll prove it to you. Okay? Just show of hands. Parents in the room. Okay, if you're a parent, great. And if you're not a parent, you're totally going to understand this. But parents in the room, I want you to imagine that you have a situation. You got a couple of kids, 6, 7, 8 years old, whatever it is. And you have a situation. You want them to go to bed, but they don't want to. Now, right there, you may not recognize it, but you have what I would call a generational difference of opinion on that topic. So if you would, please, just shout it out. What do you do in that situation, Mom and Dad?
Send them to bed anyway.
Send them to bed anyways? Melatonin, thank you. I was waiting for it. That stuff's just sitting right at the checkout line of the grocery store now. Read them a book. Let me ask you this, though. Do you have a long, drawn-out conversation with them? No. Do you say things like, oh, I see what you're saying, young lady. That's an interesting perspective that I had not previously thought about. Do you put it to a vote? No. You know why? Because these are young people. They can't be reasoned with. So what do you actually do? You shove them into bed and you let them cry it out. Now, new parents, if you don't know this, the crying, it'll actually tucker them out, and they'll forget about it in the morning anyways. They won't even remember it happened. It's a great parenting tactic, so if you haven't tried it, get on board. But right there is an example of how we are already treating the young people that are in our lives, and these are the ones that we love dearly. This is not some new college grad or somebody that we just have to deal with. So there is the other side of the coin, though. I don't want to just make this all about the young people. Does anybody ever still go to the grocery store? I know most of us were getting it delivered, right? It's so easy. Oh, but you ever go to the grocery store and you got a cart, it's piled this high, you've meal planned for the entire week, you go to pay, and what do you see? But one of those old people there, paying with the check. Like it's 1950 or something, right? What do you do there? Do you wait? Do you have a brief and informative conversation with them about the ease and utility of electronic payments? No. What do you actually do? You go to the do-it-yourself line so that you can get home before bedtime. Like these old people, why are they so slow? They don't have much time left. They should be in a hurry, but I think they just like being out and around people. That's my belief. So right there, when it comes to this generational conversation, the applications of it in the workplace, I know that everybody in this room has already heard that there are 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 different generations all working together for the first time in American history. And I'm just here to tell you today, folks, it's a lie. It is a destructive lie, and we're going to bury it. But in order for me to do that, I first have to at least acknowledge the things that you have been taught. We've all been indoctrinated with these generational names, what they mean, what they look like. And so in order to get you to a more promised state where we can actually do something with that, I've got to start with the things that you know. So let's go through the different generations. Let's talk a little bit about what I'm sure you've all heard about these groups. And then we'll talk about what we can actually do with the new information that we have, okay? So first, we're going to talk about our maturers. This was the group, also called the traditionalists, born between 1922 and 1946. And their favorite pastimes, their favorite medicines are things like whiskey and cod liver oil. The worse it tastes for you, the better it is for your digestive health. Their favorite pastimes include things like complaining about all their physical ailments and yelling at young people to get off their yard. They drive 18 miles an hour below the speed limit. And they let you know that they're turning approximately 7 miles before and 37 miles after every single turn. They can be found anywhere. There's a large group of people at a Cracker Barrel or a Denny's, maybe a walking club at the mall. But I always like to say you can identify them in the wild because they're probably wearing matching sweatsuit track outfits. That's my gauge for what I see out there. But here's the thing about this group I would encourage is to not disregard them. I do recognize that maybe they are getting towards the end of work. They might be in retirement or close to it. But we can't disregard this group because this was the group that decided that 3 martinis for lunch is a good idea. They can drink you under the table, folks. So if we're having a beer pong competition tonight at the PNC game, get one of these folks on your team. You're going to take home the championship, I promise. But next up, we have our baby boomers. Do we have any baby boomers in the room? I can't really see your hands with these lights, but I see a couple. Okay. I'm not going to lie. Normally, when I say, are there any baby boomers in the room? I get something more like a, woo! Greatest generation here! Woohoo! So a little more subdued, but it's okay. It's all right. And look, I love my baby boomers. You might be, of all the generations, my favorite. I love my baby boomers. Or as I like to call you, dirty, filthy hippies. Yeah. Don't forget your roots, people, okay? Born between 1946 and 1964, this was the group that sometimes forgets they grew up in the 60s and the 70s and all the wildness and craziness that went along with that. I mean, if you really think about it, some of America's top companies today are run by people that never showered in college. You also gave us disco music, which I'm not sure we should forgive you for. But my favorite part about this generation, and I'm sorry that it's gonna cut a little bit to the bone, but this is the generation that is responsible for the very creation of Generation X and Y. Although every day you act like you had nothing to do with it. I mean, how do you do that wizardry, Like, for example, have we heard that maybe the younger generations are the participation generation? They get a participation ribbon for everything they do, right? Who bought the ribbons? You did. You did. They didn't have any money for it. They couldn't afford it, you know. So I'm just saying, we can make fun of the young people, and we will definitely. But let's just be mindful of who they learned from. But next up, we have Generation X. Do we have any Xers in the room? Okay. All right. There you go. There you go. A little bit of energy. And normally that's the group that's like, wants to hide in the corner. They don't want to be seen. That's cool. You're coming out of your shell. It's about time. Generation X, I feel bad for you. I really do, because these are not my words. If you Google Gen X, you will see that they were called the slacker generation. Google Gen X, you'll see that they're the slacker generation, which, folks, I'm sorry. That is hilarious, considering the groups that come after you. But I guess slacker, okay. Man, your medicine of choice is obviously angst, which isn't even a medicine. You know, it's just kind of a whiny, pouty way of looking at things. I like to say that this is the group that if you tell them anything that you are proud of, they'll just tell you it's not that big of a deal. Or I think Adam Sandler really sums the group up pretty well. But what I will give this group absolute credit for is you rebelled against those crazy disco hippie boomers with the fashion sensibilities of the 1980s. Which, I mean, maybe that was better, maybe it was worse. I don't know what sweat does to an outfit like that because I've never tried, but I imagine it's bad. And you also gave us rap music, so thank you for that, Gen Xers. I know that upset some of the older people in the room, but I'm at least appreciative for it. And just in general, your fashion sensibilities, what you did with music, all those things really were a big contribution to society. So this one in particular, I will show you later. My brother's a Gen Xer, and he had this haircut. It was pretty offensive, but I'll figure out a way to just kind of weave that in for fun later, okay? But next up, we have our millennials, Gen Y. Do we have any millennials in the room? Woo! I mean, if you're going to do it, go hard. You know, that's what I always say. Go big, go big. But I appreciate it because you're also sitting up front, so I like you, okay? You're wonderful. Okay, so the millennials. Here's the thing about us. I'm a millennial, like I said, just barely. And I will defend us at times. I will rail on us at times. I'm an equal opportunity type of a person there. But I want to highlight something about this group that I sometimes don't think the older people understand. So this is the first generation that really had to grow up their formative years with the internet and with 500 channels of TV. And I sometimes don't think the older generation appreciates what that means. So let me just give you a quick example of it. It means that this entire, very large group of people has never had to develop film. We have never taken a photo and have to wait 3 weeks just to find out that 90% of it is total crap. Like, we've never made a mixtape for anybody. Think about that. You used to, all the painstaking hours you used to take to make your songs and put it in the right order so you could express your love to somebody on a cassette tape. We don't have the patience for any of that. Like, we can't even be trusted to look where we're going because we do things like this. Seriously, folks, I think we're barely even people. But I will share with you, we didn't stop apparently. There's more generations coming. Has anybody heard about Gen Z? Do we have any Gen Zers in the room? Got 2? Okay. 3 maybe? Okay, awesome. Here's the thing. I don't think you exist. And what I mean by that is I think you exist as a person. I love you. I want you to be happy, successful, do everything that you want in life to make it the best life possible. I mean that wholeheartedly, and to you as well, ma'am. I just don't think you're a separate generation. If quite frankly, as a millennial, we could use you on our side. If we just combined forces, we could actually go at the baby boomers in a much more cohorted effort. So that's all I'm saying. Like, can we just join up and like make one team, and then we don't have to like figure out this whole other generation? But I know since some of you are raising these people, you're hiring them into organizations. Let's just talk about a few things about them. First off, their medicine of choice is obviously likes and views. But also the things that I'm really concerned about is I think they're addicted to mobile payments. Because there are so many of these things nowadays. I don't know how or what to pay for anything. I feel like the next thing up is we're just going to like pay with our shoe. Like, what's the point? Maybe there could be just some universal form of payment that was accepted everywhere. And maybe they'll come along and help us show what it might look like. I don't know. I'm hopeful. But that's what you've heard, right? You've heard about the generations. You've heard about the matures, the baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. Or, as I like to call them, really old people. Old people who don't think that they're old people. Whiny people who can't decide if they're old or young people. Young people that want to be treated like adults without actually having to grow up. And then tiny little baby people. And then I guarantee if you've seen somebody talk about this before, if you've done your own research, I wholeheartedly know that you have seen a chart that looks something like this. It's got all the generations at the top. Notice how there's only 4, by the way, but all the generations at the top, all the characteristics on the side, none of which are overlapping, which I find very, very interesting. And then it just keeps going and going and going, and they tell you here, deal with this, manage this type of employee, build this type of organization, understand that this group wants this and this group wants that. How? You can't be in one generation simultaneously fighting against 3 or 4 others and expect to be successful. 2-front war, bad idea. 3-front war would never work. And besides, it's not how our brain works, folks. I am not a brain scientist. Many of you in this room, because of your backgrounds in technology, you are way smarter than I am. But I am at least smart enough to know that we like to put things into 2s. And I rationalize it in my head because we got 2 sides of our brain. We got 2 arms, 2 legs. That's what we do with literally everything else in life. Think about it. You got men versus women. You got Republicans versus Democrats, paper versus plastic, Axis versus allies, and MJ versus LeBron. Okay? This last one, by the way, is not an argument. Just stop it. It's MJ all day, okay? But then if you think about then the names that we came up with, can we all agree that they're just a little ridiculous? Like baby boomers? No offense. You're not babies anymore. If we're really being honest with ourselves, it was your parents that did all the booming, so stop taking credit for their hard work. Okay, they put in the effort, not you. And then Gen X. For what? It's not even the first letter. And then we went to Y, and then we went to Z, and where do we go next? The Dewey Decimal System? What comes next? Actually, does anybody know what the next generation coming up is? Alpha. Because we got to Z, and we're like, oops, man, I wish we wouldn't have started at X. So let's go back to A. Oh, but this time let's make them special. Let's put a word with it. Like, does anybody else think that this is just kind of ridiculous? Am I the only one? Do you ever feel like we just overcomplicate some of life's solutions sometimes? I am of the belief that some of the best ideas in life, personally, professionally, globally, are simple. And simple ideas deserve simplicity in their solutions. It deserves simplicity in their solutions. And so when we talk about how we're going to navigate this generational conversation, how we're going to be better leaders, I don't think we need to make our solutions as complicated as they are. If you take very, very simple ideas, my favorite is love your spouse, love your kids, love the people you lead. I don't think that's a difficult concept. It's a pretty simple idea. But as people, we tend to take these simple ideas and we make the solutions complicated. There's one that's sort of happening right now that it's happening not quite in this room, but in a certain way it is, which is very interesting because I didn't think about that before I put this slide in. We have had a concept, a simple idea for centuries to drink more water. It's good for you. It's good for your body. It's good for your skin. Your body actually needs it. So that's a pretty simple idea. Drink more water, right? What has become the solution for drinking more water? Apparently, it is 90,000 different types of water bottles that we can choose from. And these are great water bottles, by the way. But I will just share, just in case you are wondering, whatever bottle vessel you choose to get water into your body, every single one of them will keep your water cold. Or hot. Like, that's the great thing about them. They work both ways. And so I don't think we need to have a debate anymore about which bottle is going to keep your water cold for 8 days. Like, where are you going? The moon? And then, like, even things like, did anybody else just grow up with 12 colors in your crayon box? I mean, in case you're wondering, now the Sherwin-Williams color catalog has over 17,000 colors in it. And I don't know about you or how it works at your house, but at least at mine, the only thing that assures is that whatever color of gray we chose is inevitably going to be the wrong one. It's going to have some blue in it. I didn't even know that blue was in gray until you put it on the wall. My wife's like, no, that's not right. Then you end up painting a room a second time. I just think it's a little ridiculous. So when we think about some of the solutions to life's problems, I think we have to focus a little bit more on making the solutions more simple. And that means in this generational conversation, the answer cannot be more 5, 6 different generations. And oh, by the way, every 10 years, there's going to be a new group of people that's going to come along and just mess everything up. No, I believe if we're going to actually solve this, we have to use it with simplicity and recognize that there's actually only 2 groups of categories of people that you put somebody into. There's only 2. They are either a young person or an old person. That's it. That's all you need to know, folks, I promise. I will have fulfilled my life's mission if, by the end of today, we stop using the term baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Z, and certainly Gen Alpha, okay? Young people, old people, that's it. Because if anybody in this room has ever had trouble that you've attributed to generational differences, I guarantee you nobody in this room has ever said, well, I'm a baby boomer. Yeah, just with some traditional tendencies. You know, I'm trying to understand the subtle nuances of the Gen X and Gen Y mind. No. What you either say is, that punk kid has no idea what they're talking about, or that old fart needs to retire. That's what you do. That's the reality of it. So, if you can follow me along that maybe we are overcomplicating this by just a little bit, then we have to figure out which group you're in. And that's what we are going to do here today. I've been commissioned to do a study with NASA to determine once and for all if you are a young or an old person. And we're going to go through this quiz here together. If you don't mind, can we bring the lights up just a little bit while we do this quiz? Because I want to kind of see as we go through it. But what we're going to do is there's 11 questions to this quiz. The answer is either A or B. There is no C. There is no spot for your feelings. Okay, so you do have to pick one. And I just need you to remember how many times you answer A or B to the next 11 questions. That's it. The answer is A or B. It should add up to 11. I think we'll be good. But if you do need to jot it down, you got the pieces of paper there. If that doesn't work, use a neighbor's forehead, whatever you got to do. Okay, but we're going to figure out once and for all if you are a young or an old person. Y'all ready to do that? Okay, y'all ready to do that? Yes. There we go. Okay, question number 1. Have you ever used a computer that required you to put a thing called a disk into a thing called a disk drive? A, yes. B, I don't recognize those words, Matt. Some of you in technology, I feel pretty good about that one. Just show of hands, who's an A? Okay, do we have any Bs? There we go, all right. All right, question number 2. Do you now or have you ever owned an 8-track tape? A, yes. B, what are you talking about? Do we have any Bs in the room here? Okay, all right, now we're getting a little more parity. This is good. This is good. Question number 3. When you see the words Foursquare, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? A, that's an outdoor game or maybe some wholesome barnyard dancing. Or B, that's a form of social media. Let's see what we're working with. We got A's. What about the B's? There we go. Okay, you know it's still around. You can still go to Foursquare. I didn't realize that until a couple of weeks ago. It's still around. I'm surprised. But question number 4. Your typical weekend bedtime. Weekend bedtime is closer to A, 6 p.m. or B, 6 a.m. If you're not good at math, the cutoff is midnight there, okay? And I do mean weekend bedtime, not conference bedtime. That's different, okay? But who are A's in the room? Who are B's in the room? Okay, all right, night owls, I like it. Question number 5, do you have any idea what a party line used to be? A, of course I do. Or B, I'm trying to figure out why these old people are snickering. Young people, I know what you think it could be. It is not that. Nope. Get your head out of the gutter. You're going to have to ask an old person what it is. Question number 6. In the last 6 months, have you sent a handwritten letter of any kind in the mail? A, yes. Or B, that's just for sign-in checks or Amazon packages. With the pandemic, some of us got back to this a little bit, but we're farther away now. There maybe nobody's done one in a while. Question number 7. Do you occasionally walk from one room of your house, get to where you were going, and forget why you wanted to be there in the first place? A, yes. B, no. Simple yes, no. Where are my A's here? Just curious. Okay, good, because I've been that way my whole life, and I was worried it was just me. Okay, question number 8. I don't mean to bring the mood down or anything like that, but history is important. Do you remember when John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., or Ronald Reagan got shot? A, yes. B, I don't recognize who those people are. You should know that one. Please Google it. Understand that history is important, so we don't repeat it always. Sometimes we should, sometimes we shouldn't. But question number 9, has a horse ever been a primary mode of transportation for you? A, yes. B, no. And I mean primary, folks, okay? Primary mode of transportation. This horse had a name that everybody in town knew. Just did a talk yesterday in Texas where we also did this quiz, and I really had to like narrow in on that one for them. It's very possible that the entire audience was like, well, yeah, I had a horse. Question number 10. Madonna covered American Pie, Sheryl Crow covered Sweet Child of Mine, and Darius Rucker covered Wagon Wheel. How does that make you feel inside? Well, A, they're butchering the classics. They should be ashamed of themselves. Or B, they're breathing life into crappy oldies. And this last one, before I ask for your answer, and I would love to see the responses if you're really honest with yourself, but the truth is human nature tells me that you're going to try to lie to me on this answer. And that's okay. You can lie to me, I won't know, but you are lying to yourself, so don't. Question number 11, if you had to wait in line for something, which of these lines would be a more important line to wait in? A line for food and water, or B, the next iPhone? Okay, you got to pick. You got to pick one. Food and water, it sustains life, but what life's worth living without an iPhone? I'm with you. Who's a B with me? Thank you, sir. Thank you for having the courage to raise your hand. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so everybody got your number? Does it add up to 11? Okay, let's do this really quick. I just want to see kind of like what we're working with. Did anybody answer all B's? All B's, 11 B's, 0 A's. Okay, good. Those people can't feed themselves. I don't want them here. But if you want to use this as some sort of a pre-employment questionnaire, please do that. If they answer all 11 A's, don't let them in the door. They're going to bring their friends along. They work in packs. It's bad for everybody. But conversely, did anybody answer all A's? Do we have any all A's in the room? You got 11 A's? No, stop it. Ma'am, don't be sorry. I'm excited. Do you mind if like we have a little conversation here? Okay, and your name is?
Peggy.
Peggy?
Yeah.
Okay, what?
My name's Peggy.
Yeah, well, you know, I didn't want to stereotype. Okay, so Peggy, where did you grow up?
Rockford, Illinois.
Rockford, I grew up in Bloomington. Okay, awesome. What was the horse's name?
There was a horse named Olga.
Olga, okay.
Not in Rockford, but near Rockford. Belvedere, if you will.
Was it your horse?
Oh, God, no. No, it was my brother's horse.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, technically, I don't know if you read the question right. But it's okay. We're still gonna roll with this because my level of excitement, Peggy. I've done this quiz for a little while. I always change the questions because I always want to be a 6 and 5 on the young side. But I've always tried to like figure out if I can find this person that is all A's because I don't believe the all B person exists. At least I hope they don't. But I do think this A person is out there, and I have something for them. And absolutely no disrespect to you, Peggy, but the award that it comes with is the Congratulations for Still Being Alive award. But more importantly, it comes with something that I think you'll be able to appreciate. And it's a full set of Encyclopedia Britannicas. Woo! Yes! Peggy, no joke. I'm going to have to get your address because this is a true story. I was helping my mom clean out some stuff in her basement, the house that we grew up in. And she had like the full set. That's what we had growing up, and she, for some reason, kept them. We're like, Mom, let's get rid of these for you. So we took ownership of them to take them to the recycling center. But if anybody has tried to recycle an entire set of Encyclopedia Britannicas, you would find out that they will not take it because apparently it is too heavy or the cover is too thick. I don't know what it is. And so now these are mine. And they're sitting in my garage, and I am looking for somebody to give them to. Peggy, they're coming to your house, okay? You got to find something to do with them. Oh, she's already got it. Then we're good. Okay, all right, well. My level of excitement's now down, but okay, everyone, please round of applause for Peggy for being a good sport. Thank you. I will mail your certificate in 4 to 6 weeks. But folks, okay, look, obviously, most oftentimes the case, you're going to be a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I want to pause for half a moment to just recognize something, that we have a room here of 150-ish people, right? And nobody in this room, except for Peggy, but she technically kind of didn't understand the horse question. Nobody was all A and nobody was all B. 150 people in this room. So how come sometimes when we step outside of these walls, when we step online, when we step into our communities, do we have the tendency to think that the people we're interacting with, working with, living with, are all the way over here and all the way over there? So I just want to just take this moment to recognize that in most cases, we are somewhere in the middle. And we have got to be especially more diligent now than ever to make sure we understand the people around us, important to us, that there is a middle ground somewhere, and be harder at trying to find it, okay? Because it's getting harder to necessarily draw those lines. And so hopefully this is just a quick experiment to show that it's out there, and if you look for it, you will find it. But that said, I also realize it's really fun to put people into their camps and be able to yell at the other side. So that's what we're going to do, because that's fun too. All right, so if you answered 6 or more times to A, there was 11 questions. That's why, because I don't want to have ties. 6 or more times to A, would you please stand up? I won't call on you like Peggy, I promise. 6 or more times to A, and just look around. See what we're dealing with in the room. Any of the people you might work with? No. And if you would, what I'd like to do is I would like to create so much energy in this room and be so loud that maybe security stops by and asks us what's happening. Maybe the other conference that's going on down the hall, they have questions. So if you would, as loud as you possibly can, I want you to give yourself a big round of applause, because you folks are our own people! Woo! Yes! Good job, old people. You may sit down. Gingerly, gingerly. Okay, don't pull anything. I'm getting old too. I have just found that hips don't tell you. They just, whoop, they go. So here's the deal. The rest of our time together, I will refer to you as old people. Don't get mad at me. You took the quiz, not me, okay? But I do realize also that, unfortunately, there was a group of people left sitting that are really upset that they haven't been noticed yet. So let's recognize them. If you answered 6 more times to B, would you please stand up? 6 more times to B. There you go. Okay, all right. I won't call on you, don't worry. So, but this is interesting, and this is typical with, manufacturing, that we might be skew a little older. That's okay, but we got about an 80-20 mix here. Young people, I think we can be pretty loud too. I think we can do it. So as loud as you can, give yourself a big round of applause, because you folks are our young people! Woo! Yeah, good job, young people. You may sit down. And thank you, old person, for clapping for them. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, sir. Because literally, like I said, we did this quiz yesterday in Texas, and it was about an 80-20 split as well, too, on that one. And as all the young people stood up, it was just crickets from the old people. In fact, one of them hissed at them, and I thought that was wildly inappropriate. So I like you, sir. But young people, let me just rail on us for half a second here, just because it's fun. I do think we're the reason for a lot of interesting challenges we have in life today. I think we're the reason for $6 cups of coffee and bottled water, because before we were around, I am told that those things were free everywhere. We'll pay double for anything with the term organic on it, and that includes plastic bags, but that also makes absolutely no sense. And pretty soon, I think if things keep moving in the right direction, after about 35 years of age, we will eventually move out of our parents' basement and get a place of our own. So paying rent feels good. It's great. But look, now you kind of know where you land, and that's okay. But here's the thing, and this is the challenge we must continue to fight, is just by standing and putting you into the camps, it is very easy to fall back into the snap judgments that we have, the snap stereotypes that we have about our age again. I know the older people, I know some of the stereotypes we continue to hold about the young people, that they are lazy, unmotivated, no work ethic, more interested in social media than any form of productivity, and can't be left in charge of any major decisions yet. And that's fair. There's some pockets of that. It's also very hard to look at some of the tattoos that they've chosen to get and think that they could make rational decisions. It's fine. Old people, just so you know, you made some poor decisions in your youth too. And if you forgot about them, I will show you some later just to remind you, okay? But I also then know what the young people think about the older people. And it's interesting in this group, because I'm of the belief that the older generation, you may be some of the most tech-savvy older generation people than any other industry because you've probably been dealing with technology changes for the last 25, 30 years of your career. But I am willing to bet you have some young people that show up to work on the first day and think that you have no idea, that you're technologically incompetent, that you're scared of change. And in fairness, the only reason that they, can make that assumption is that sometimes I do think the pandemic really hurt a lot of young people when it comes to using technology with older people, because those first couple weeks of Zoom calls that many of the young people had, and the old people are just like talking into the camera. I don't think that was this group, but I just recognize that maybe in their past roles they had to deal with that for many, many weeks until we realized that you can step back and just frame it up and talk normally. But my point is, it's not good to fall back into these snap stereotypes, okay? I believe that if we better understand why young people are the way that they are today, why old people are the way that they are, that is the key to unlocking how we work together better. And so we will talk about that. That's what the rest of this time will be, talking about that, having some table discussions about what you're doing at your organization, in your teams to kind of lead this charge. Because I think that's a great thing about an event like this is you get the opportunity to learn from each other, some other industry people, as well as people that you may not have day-to-day contact with. So we'll do some of that. But I want to start just holistically talking about why I think the young people are the way that they are. And this is not an all-inclusive list, but I just want to at least recognize that the younger generation is the generation that had to grow up with things like Jersey Shore and the video games we have today, and even shows like Maury Povich. Does anybody remember Maury? Okay, good. I get worried sometimes the younger people don't know what that is. But if you grew up watching Maury Povich, you had to live your entire life walking the streets thinking every male figure could be your father. It's a difficult life to live, people. So, but more importantly, right, I do believe that the younger generation, back in the 1990s, early 1990s, we got access as people to the most magical invention of time, which was the internet. And in this ability, as we got access to the internet, very quickly we were able to share information, consume information with anybody across the world in an instant like that. Overnight. I mean, small correction, it did take 8 minutes to load, but after that, you could pretty much share information with anybody, to the point where if you look at today, some of the statistics that are out there, what we're dealing with every single day on the internet, as people, we are uploading more than 2 million articles of information to the web every single day. If you look at some of the social media platforms, Instagram, over 100 million photos and videos are being uploaded to that one platform every single day. And the number has slightly changed, but it's coming back on Twitter. Over 500 million tweets are being posted online every single day. Can we just take a moment to recognize that that is a ridiculous amount of information and misinformation for our brains to be able to navigate? Add in now the layers of AI and trying to question whether or not the things you are watching and seeing are actually real. Our brains cannot handle that amount of information. Peggy, how many volumes of Encyclopedia Britannicas would it take for just one day's worth of information in 2024? Your whole house. It'd be your whole house of books. It'd be impossible, right? So many volumes. And most of the young people today, they just get to Hey Siri all of life's questions. And I really wish I would have had that for 7th grade algebra. It would have been great. But this is certainly not an anti-technology talk, okay? Because I want to be very, very clear. I think the internet has done some amazing things for us, certainly in work, but also like the fact that we have been able to find a place online, our voice in spots where previously we may have not have had those opportunities. I like to use Justin Bieber as an example. He's not really my thing as far as music goes, but this was probably the first person that we said found their voice online, posted some videos to YouTube. Next thing you know, he's signing a record deal and becoming an international music star, okay? The decisions that he has made since then, those are his choices, okay? We're not gonna get into personal accountability here today, but he can deal with that. And so I think that remains the greatest thing about the internet is this ability to find those smaller sense of community. But we have to compare that to the mental architecture of the world at which we're also building at the same time. And I believe it's overwhelmed our brain's ability to handle everything that's coming at us. I believe that not just because of my own belief, I believe it to be fact based on a concept in research called Dunbar's number, which was introduced in the late 2000s. Has anybody heard of Dunbar's number before? Awesome. So you can keep me honest to this, but Robin Dunbar was a British anthropologist and philosopher who in 2000 tried to look at basically answering this question: how many people can any one person care about at any given moment? And sometimes I think social media is leading us to believe that it could be thousands of people. You have thousands of friends and followers, and it's this big global world. But he was looking at, do we really have the mental capacity for that? Now, I would argue, I don't think there's a limit to the number of people we can care about, because I don't know everybody in this room, but I should care about you. I should want to see you happy and successful, like my Gen Z friend over there. I should want to see you live the best life. So I don't think there's a limit to the number of people we can care about. But in his research, he was looking at what are those deeper emotional connections? What are the people that you would invite to your birthday party? Who are the people that you want to go to work with and spend 8 hours a day with? Those types of relationships. And he found that there is actually a limit to that capacity. That number is a lot smaller than we typically give it credit. It's about 150 people. I think it's maybe even closer to 100. But the reason I believe this to be true is because when you go back and you look at Neolithic farming villages, their archaeological records show that those communities were no bigger than 150 people. They can see that if it got that big, they would down the road see another community that got built. We know from county records that an 18th century English parsonage was 150 people big. We know that the Roman military companies were 150 people big. An American military company is about 160. If you've ever been to or had a large wedding, 300 people, that's a pretty big one. And that's 150 people for each marrying spouse. And Facebook's done this study. They looked at how many friends do we have in our friend networks and how many are we interacting with. And what they found that it did not matter the difference, whether you had 200 friends, you had 1,000 friends, and you had 5,000 friends, every single one of us on their platform was only interacting with 150 people. That's why they've changed the algorithm. They changed it a lot, but one of the bigger changes they've made in the last decade is to only show you the 150 people that the algorithm believes is a part of your community today. And I think a lot of people know this at this point. My mom still has trouble figuring this out. But right, if you haven't seen somebody's post in a while, did they unfriend you? No. You go to their page, you're still friends with them, you just haven't been seeing their posts. But now that you've gone to their page and Facebook snooped on them, what's going to happen the next day? Those posts are going to start flooding your page again, because now the algorithm thinks that person is back into your closer one community of 150 people. So the reason I use this to illustrate this point is because what that says to me is, again, everybody in this room, regardless of where you are on the young or old side, every single one of us is looking for about 150 people to connect to. But what's changed is how we find those connections. You older people, you grew up at a time that did not have this connection in your life. Your most formative years before the age of 25 did not involve constant connectivity. I'm willing to bet that there are some of you in this room that forget that you used to answer the phone at your house by saying hello like it was a question. Because it was a question. You had no idea who was calling. No caller ID. Could have been your mom. Could have been the police. Like every time that phone rang, it was a surprise in the house, and you rush to it and you get really excited to see who it is. I'm old enough to at least remember the mile-long phone cord, right? When we got that thing so you could have a private conversation behind the wall. Nobody in the house could hear it at all. It was great. And then in the 80s or like 90s, we kind of started to get our first sense of mobility. Who had it? The 35-pound car console phone. You could either use it as a backpack or you could strap it and bolt it to the car. It was great. You ever watch those first videos of the Motorola cell phone? Oh, they're so good. But then we got the internet, right? And most of us, if you had this $7,000 box computer, everybody put it like somewhere in the living room so that everybody in the house could use it. And then I could go into my mom's bedroom and pick up the phone line and interrupt whatever my brothers were doing. It was great. But so that technology has, continued, of course, to get better and better. But the point being, you older people, you grew up at a time that didn't have that. You had your communities, your high school, your junior high, at most a couple thousand people in that world. And in a world that big, it makes it a lot easier to find the people that are going to be a part of your community, that you're going to learn from, that you're going to grow from, the people that are going to teach you what not to do, by learning through their experiences, and the people that will help guide you and make you feel like your life is something bigger than it may be. But the younger people, we have to recognize that literally since birth, their life has always been global. It has always been 6, 7, 8 billion people large. And in a world that big, it does make it a lot more difficult to find those people that are going to be a part of your community, because the communities don't necessarily exist in the physical world as much anymore. They could exist much more online and globally. And when your brain is presented with too many options, we were joking about, or at least I was joking about this at dinner last night. As we got dinner, we went to a really awesome taco place right across from the hotel, and there's 4,000 options for tacos, and I needed like the one, because I don't want to make all those decisions. Well, there's actually something that happens to your brain. Your brain, when it's presented with too many options, instead of picking one, it's easier to make the decision to do nothing. There's a study done, I don't know if is anybody really into like jams and marmalades? No? Surprising. Okay. But if you were, right, then you might know the famous jam study. It was done by Sheena Iyengar and Mark Lepper. And what they did is they took gourmet jams and jellies, and they went to those fancy grocery stores. And on some days, they set up a display of 6, and on other days, they set up a display of 24. And they just wanted to see, how do people buy and purchase and what happens. And what they found over the course of their study was that people went and visited the display of 24. They like to look and see and touch at a rate of over 700% more than the smaller display. But when it came time to actually do something and make a purchase, they bought from the display of 6 at a rate of over 1,000% more. And so that's because it's called the poverty of choice. When you're presented with too many options, your body shuts down essentially and does nothing. The same thing is kind of happening to the relationship that the younger people are trying to create. And so I would argue that like all of us at times are struggling, feeling like what we're doing is interesting and important compared to the ocean of noise that we're living in today. But you older people at least have a grounding in a less connected time. The younger people, we don't have that. And so what I would ask you, just consider. You can answer this for yourself if you think this is actually happening, but I believe the world today is just a little bit bigger than it used to be, and the younger people are looking for different ways to connect within it. So what does that mean for you? And what does that mean that we can do in our organizations? Well, for the older people, the first thing I would ask you to appreciate is just the fact that we are all a product of that upbringing. Every single one of us has a story of our upbringing that has shaped the way that we are today. And if we are not spending enough time and effort to understand the people on our team and what they might be bringing to work with them every single day, then we're doing ourselves a big disservice. When it comes to the idea of loyalty as well too, the young people coming into the workplace, we have to recognize that nobody's immediately going to have loyalty to your team, to your organization on day one, because babies aren't even instinctively loyal to their parents. They have to learn that over time as you bathe them, feed them, like keep them warm and safe. And my daughters are 10 years old, and even still, I sometimes feel like all that loyalty I've built with them over 10 years is immediately thrown out the window as soon as grandma and grandpa come around. Do you guys feel that as well? Do you guys get the joy of being a grandparent and like seeing that? I have to like feed them cake just so that they come back and tell me they love me. It's like a sugar passage that we do in our house. But my point being, we have to be extremely intentional about building this sense of community amongst the younger people, because we're the ones that may be struggling with that a little bit more. And so the other thing I would tell you is that regardless again of your status or where you are in life, we're all in search for this sense of community, and we sometimes just need to understand how to build it. So we're going to do a little exercise here just to try to highlight that a little bit. What I'd like you to do is on your piece of paper, or if you want to use your notes app on your phone, whatever it is, older people, if you don't know how to use your notes app, I can certainly show you. But what I want you to do is I want you to just take like 30 seconds, a minute. I want you to write down, if I asked you to think of the first 10 people that make up your community, who are the first 10 people that take up mental real estate in your brain, I'd like you to write those names down. And please, if you have to go to 11, if you don't want to split hairs between a brother and sister, I don't want somebody left out, okay? You know, it can be more than 10. But just write down that first list of 10 people or so that make up your community. All right, was that, fairly quick and easy? Is anyone just willing to share like a name or two that you wrote down? Yes, sir?
Pastor Jones.
Pastor Jones. I'm assuming Pastor Jones to you is your pastor, or is that a sibling of some sort?
My pastor.
That I like it. Okay. Why? If I asked you why you wrote down Pastor Jones, tell me a little bit about why. When I said community, you said, "Oh, it's definitely Pastor Jones."
He's a leader in the community in which we live. He's a leader in ministry. We have a personal relationship. I take him out to dinner. He takes me out to dinner. Go to birthday parties with him.
You spend time together.
Yeah, just a good person to have as a friend.
So I don't. Can everybody hear that? I don't know if so. Basically saying they spend time together. They have meals together. They certainly experience things together. He's a leader in the community. So I would say maybe somebody that you would try to emulate as well. You look up to them.
Yep.
Is that fair? Okay. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Anybody else have another name on their list that?
Well, I just named all my family members.
Okay. So in this one, we named all of our family members. Let me dive just a little bit deeper on that because, and I'm not going to ask for anybody to share, but sometimes family is not necessarily the source of community. Sometimes family can be the source of heartbreak, of trouble, right? So when you write down your family and when you think of family, what are the reasons why that you would put them there?
Probably because they are the people that I spend most of my time with, or that I have concerns with, that I help with, that there's interaction, that I make sure that I talk to every week, that those are the people that are closest to me on a daily basis and a weekly basis in life.
So these are the people that are closest to you, that you spend time with, that you care for, you want to see them do well, and you want to help whenever you possibly can. Is that fair?
And they don't let me go.
And they don't let you go. Anyone else have any? Does anybody else have somebody on their list where between what we talked about with Pastor Jones and your family, are there other reasons why, when you look at that list and you say, why is this person here? Are there some other reasons, ma'am?
Yeah, my best friend, Mary Jane. I went to high school and college with her. We've shared great times together and really sad times together too, and always have been there to support each other.
So you've been there to support Mary Jane since college, through the good times and the bad times. All right, so the reason we do this exercise, and what I would encourage you to do, I'll actually provide you some resources after the talk that you can take home and mess with if you're bored on a plane and want to do this, is those first 10 are pretty easy, generally, because these are the people that are probably closest to you. But as you expand that list, if I were to ask you to actually try and write down 100 names, you would start to eventually slow down. It would get a little bit harder to think about. But sometimes doing that exercise is really powerful to just understand, yeah, who's a part of my community and who's not. What I would also encourage you to do is, if you wrote down one of those 10 names and you have not talked to them in the last week, please do so. Reach out, make an effort, make sure that you're continuing that relationship with them. Because you said they're the most important part of your community, so we need to be active in that space. But even though we all have different names on the list, I think what I'm hearing is that the reasons why those people are there are the same. These are people we spend time with. These are people we love. You laugh with them sometimes, you cry with them sometimes, and you support them through life. You want to see the best in them. So if that's the case, then we talk about building community in the places we work. Don't we simply just have to do the same thing to those people? As leaders, if I were to go to your team and I would say, hey, give me your top 10, give me your top 20, would your name be on there? I would hope so. I would hope that we're putting in that same level of effort, because for the younger people in particular, that's what they are looking for. We all know that hiring in today's world is a challenge, right? We know that people will leave jobs pretty quickly. What do you think is going to be the differentiator between people wanting to stay and people wanting to leave? It's going to be that personal touch, finding a sense of community very quickly. So what I would ask you to do now, just at your tables, is I want to just hear from you. You guys talk for a little bit, and I share what you're doing at your organizations, in your teams, to build the community where somebody would write your name or your organization's name on their list, okay? Because what I'm willing to bet is some of you are doing some amazing things that you either don't give yourself credit for, or you're doing some things that you could learn from others about some new technologies or some new strategies to do so. So we're going to take like 5 minutes. I just want you to talk at your table. What are you doing, or what could you be doing to build community amongst your team and the people you lead? All right. If I could bring you all back. I found a plant in the room that will share a story, but I would ask everyone else, was there anything that you shared at your table that you found interesting, eye-opening, that you'd be willing to share with the group? And we have a microphone this time. This is great. I know.
One thing that I noticed is, so our company is small. We have maybe 50 employees. And Christina works for Ford.
A little bit bigger.
A little bit bigger.
Yeah.
So the things that I can do in a smaller scale are difficult at a bigger scale. And so it comes down to not just training the new employees, but training the people that they're coming into to deal with those people. So there's a lot more levels, whereas I can just mentor a new employee because there's only a handful of them, whereas they have to really, like, they're hiring how many people at a time?
We could have like 50 to 100 come in.
Yeah, 50 or 100.
Yeah.
How do you make them feel at home and feel a sense of community? That has to trickle down somewhere.
And it has to be, I would say, much more intentional. The larger your organization, the much more intentional you have to be, especially the people who are going to get those first touches. If you have, for example, if Ford has an onboarding team, an onboarding process, everybody working in that onboarding team better be the nicest, happiest people, that really set Ford up, because if not, that's going to be their first impression. And we were talking at this table, this younger generation has seen their parents go through work. We've heard the adage that was shared at the table about, you spend more than half your time with the people you work than you even do your family. So if I don't feel a sense of community and family very quickly, one of the benefits of growing up in today's world is there are more and more options to choose from. So they are willing to say, nope, didn't work there, I'll try here. Nope, didn't work there, I'll try here. Nope, I think I found my people. And so we have to be very intentional, I think, the larger it gets. Any other table? My friend over here who clapped for the young people. Yes, sir.
We discussed creating a sense of worth. Even if it's just responding to an email in a society, a business society, where we do so much with emails. Numerous times we'll send out an email, my group, crickets. Shows a very, a sense of disrespect. It's not creating worth. Just being able to, respond timely and appropriately, I think builds a lot of worth on the other end.
Yep.
Just a small sample.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Roger. And then, oh yeah, okay. I couldn't tell if that was just a hair. There we go.
Yeah, I'm twitchy. Yeah, we're from Rockford. What's up, Peggy? But we'll chat later. Yeah. So, most of our people are on site, and we're able to do things like volunteer projects or happy hours, things like that. Tony disappeared. My God.
Tony knew you were going to
But yeah. He brought up the issue of remote work and how do you build a community similar to the sense of just having a giant corporation, also all those people being spread out across the globe or across the nation, and how do you build that community through Zoom? So just kind of something to think about.
Did you have an idea about
We
how you
didn't
do
solve
that?
it. We didn't solve it. No.
So-
Happy hours on Zoom didn't sound successful. So.
Nobody likes Zoom happy hours, right? Can we all agree? But yes, I think the virtual aspect. How many folks in the room have a virtual component to the either work you do or the people you lead? Okay, so this is going to sound a little repetitive, but when it comes to Zoom relationships, Zoom working relationships, your intentionality has to go up about 4 or 5 times. And what it looks like is scheduling time on your calendar maybe to make sure that you spend 5 minutes a day checking with the team virtually to get that sort of water cooler talk that you don't get in person. Because if you would, I'm going to go over here, and I'm sorry, I don't know if I caught your name, but you had a great example of how you're doing this in the physical environment at your organization.
Yeah, I just.
Oh, I turned it off, I'm sorry.
Got
There we
it.
go.
Yeah, much easier for us. We're small as well, so similar story. But I got taught a long time ago from a gentleman to just go out and not just say good morning and try to find out what they're doing for work, but do some emotional deposits and do it consistently, and go out and just say, hey, how's it going? And you can tell after a while as you're building that relationship out there on the floor. And I only have 50 people to hit up in the one building, you know, so I can do that every morning. I can go out and say, hey, how's it going? How's it going today? You know, and you know from the backstory, after a while, it's like a soap opera. How's your kids, you know, how's your kids' teeth? They just, you know, got their wisdom teeth out, you know, that kind of stuff. And it goes a long ways. It talks about something other than just work and get that sense of family. And we do a lot of meals, lunches, and you were talking about bringing in people. They have 2,000 people, so they have some great techniques as well. Would you share that?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I work for Toyota Material Handling in Columbus, Indiana. We have about 2,000 employees at our facility. It's a manufacturing facility, but also our corporate office. So 4 or 5 years ago, we hired a corporate events manager to help connect more with our associates. So just some examples of activities that we've implemented over the past years. We did a car show. So associates that have, you know, cool cars, they bring them on campus, and then other associates will come look at them. We've done like a little carnival at our facility where families can come. There's certain events, fishing day. There's a fishing day at Carnival where they can bring their kids, parents, grandparents. Also get an opportunity to take a factory tour to get a feel for what their parents do on a day-to-day basis, which is really cool to build that family aspect into it. We're very cognizant of when there's a birth in the family that we share that in a company-wide communication so people know and are aware so they can congratulate them and stay in touch with the growing family there. So just some things that we can make a personal touch to make it more of a family environment. So.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, thank you everybody for sharing. I appreciate that. To kind of just maybe close a circle on this part. Before, you know, I climbed Mount Everest and won the Heisman and all those types of things. I used to work for State Farm Insurance, and I was in charge of their sales and service customer call centers. So if anybody is a State Farm Insurance holder, if you ever called somebody to do something on your policy, you would have got somebody on my team. That was like Jake from State Farm's boss. To your point about how much we're hiring and all this types of stuff, at one point I think we were hiring about 250 employees every 2 months as they're coming into this call center environments, which is not the same as manufacturing, but similar environment where you have a very transient group. You got people that work 24 hours a day. And I had a boss who would do exactly what Gregory did. And every day when he got off the elevator, instead of going into his office, he would spend 25 to 30 minutes walking the aisles of this extremely large call center, 6 floors, and just saying hi to people. And a lot of us looked at him. And by the way, this was an older guy. Okay, he was probably in his 50s, so credit to the old people for being awesome. But he would do that, and honestly, some of us were hesitant. Like, I don't have an hour in my day to do this, but he sort of expected that we figure it out. And so, it became a little bit of our practice. But I remember it was a Friday at 4:30 p.m. when he comes into my office one day, and was already wanted to be gone an hour before. I was trying to sneak out early on a Friday. I want to get home. And he comes in and he says, "Hey, are you going to Marco's brother's funeral?" And I'll be honest, the first thing I had to think about is, who is Marco? Because Marco was like one of the call center representatives that worked third shift. So it took me a second to even recognize, wait, who is Marco? Oh, Marco, okay. His brother passed away. I did not know this information, but here was a senior vice president who knew that information, was going to the funeral, and was now asking me to drive him on a Friday at 5. So I was like, I called my wife. I said, I will be home late. And we went to Marco's brother's funeral. And as we got there, we paid our respects, but what I remember most is when we saw Marco standing there with the family, you saw the look on his face. And it instantly changed. And we paid our respects, we did what we could, we went home. And I came back into the office on Monday, and I had my leaders coming into my office, I had call center representatives stopping by, everybody saying, "Hey, did you really go to Marco's brother's funeral?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, how and why do you know this? And they said, "Well, everyone's talking about it. Like, Marco's talking about it." And so I went and I talked to Marco and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" Those types of stuff. And he said, "Man, I'm so thankful." And what I remember him saying is, "I think I found where I want to be." Because it's those types of connections. I hope that nobody's family member dies in any means. But if we don't even take the time to understand what's going on in their life, how are we going to build community within it? So to the virtual point, you have to be very intentional about doing it early and often so that you can understand what's going on in their life and build that sense. It is harder virtually. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But if you really do that, then you can recreate some of those things that you can do a little bit easier virtually. And if it's a very, very large team that you're responsible for, then yes, you have to be intentional on your calendar about what you do with it. Because it's those little deposits that I really do believe go a long way and will help make these younger people in particular really want to be a part of the family, stay with you, learn, and grow. But look, that said, I'm going to try to transition off of the funeral story and go into something a little more fun. I want to talk to the younger people too, because this isn't supposed to be just a one-way street. The younger people, we definitely have things to learn. And so what I'd like you to do really quick is, young people, find an older person that's sitting here and just go ahead and stare at them awkwardly, if you would. Analyze the old things about them, if you would. No, I'm joking. Don't do that. I know the HR folks are getting scared again. Let me give you a different example so that nobody has to touch somebody, okay? This is a photo of my brother Jeff. I don't expect you to know Jeff. If you do, wonderful for you. But if this is the only thing you know about him, you might think he's a half-decent person. I have a million stories to the contrary. But he's not here to defend himself. I don't really think it's fair if I get into that. What I do know with certainty, though, is that if the only thing you knew about Jeff was his 9th grade yearbook photo, you would have a much different impression. Okay? And thank you for laughing. I appreciate it. That makes me feel good. Now, like I said, he's not here to defend himself. I feel like this is a little bit of a cheap shot on him. It is, but I will at least acknowledge that in our whole family of photos, K through 12, 3 brothers, that's 39 different school photos we had to take, and this is the worst one. But I'll acknowledge, because he's not here, that I'm at least a close second place. And thank you for the awe, whoever did that. You're my friend now. But I am here to defend myself, so I will do that. First off, you can see what my hippie boomer parents were trying to do to me, right? I fought back. I rebelled. But also, this was Picture Retake Day. Does anybody remember Picture Retake Day? I don't know what they do now. I'm not sure. I don't even think they have yearbooks. At least we didn't get one for our kids. I don't know. But Picture Retake Day meant you took one photo. You probably looked nice. Mom probably made sure of that. And then you took it, you came home, and Mom was like, no, try again. So on Picture Retake Day, there was no redo. Whatever you did, if your eyes were closed, it didn't matter. That's what was going in the yearbook, and that's what was going to go up in the hallway of the house that you grew up in. Or at least, again, that's what happened in my house, to the point where I'm 40 and I'm trying to have more kids so I can get this thing down. If I would have known it was picture retake day, I would have made some different choices. I would have put some product in my hair, probably chose a different shirt. I probably just would have redone the whole haircut before picture day, but whatever. If you think I'm joking about this, Peggy, the encyclopedias that we found when I was helping her clean out some stuff, I also found apparently the note that I wrote when I brought the pictures home. Please don't ask me why 30 years later my mom still had this note. She doesn't know that I've used it in a presentation before, or that I've used this photo before. So as we're cleaning this stuff out and I find this note, I was like, what? So I'll read it to you. This was a note I brought home. It said, "These pictures are highly ugly. I didn't know it was picture day." And then I signed it, Matt Havens, Picturee. I mean, there's a couple things wrong about that. First off, Picturee is not a word. But also, why did I feel the need to sign it with my name to my mom, like she doesn't know who the kid is? So I don't know. There's a lot of things wrong with this, but let's get back to talking about Jeff, because that's more fun for me. You remember the Vanilla Ice haircut I was talking about, that you Gen Xers with your fashion? I mean, you can kind of see it here. But more importantly, folks, I know mullets are coming back. We're going to see a lot at the baseball game tonight, okay? And if you're going to rock a mullet, do it. Rock it. Go hard. Do the business on top and the party on back. But he didn't want a party back there. He wanted like a quiet get-together of some sort. I mean, what is that? And the chain that's on his neck, shout out what you think could be on the bottom of it. A dollar sign? No. Cross? No. It's actually a dragon claw holding a crystal ball. Yeah, you guys remember the pewter phase of life? Yeah. His girlfriend then and still to this day is imaginary. But why am I doing this, folks? Because it's fun for me, okay? I enjoy making fun of my brother. That's just one of the joys I get out of this job. But no, in all seriousness, the reason I show you this is because I have to admit, over the years, he did get better. He aged well, like a fine cheese or a boxed wine of some sort. And so what I hope that leads us to understand, young people, is that when it comes to the older people in life, when it comes to all of us, yes, we have had failures. Yes, we will continue to have failures. And yes, as we're learning and growing and upskilling the next level workforce, they will continue to have failures along the way too. That's okay, that's part of it. But also, young people, the older people that you are working with, they didn't get there overnight. That's why I was saying this group is so fascinating with the older people in technology. You have been at the forefront of change for 25 years. And so the younger people, when we come in, we think we have new ideas about how to do things. We've got to recognize that the older people are kind of our ticket to understanding that world. They are the ones that have the experience and the knowledge and will help bring us into that space. But nothing, if you take nothing away from this, young people, I would ask you to just consider this. Advancement is a process, not a right. You don't get promotions, you don't get raises, you don't get more responsibility like we get presents. You have to earn these things. And typically we're going to earn them a little bit slower than we would all generally like. Now here's the thing I want to make sure we don't have the conversation at. Sometimes you see organizations where an older person says, hey, you know what, young person, it took me 10 years to get here, it should take you 10 years to get here. And I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, is that everything we do in life takes time. So younger people, you cannot pick up a football today, never played before, and go play in the NFL, except for maybe the Dallas Cowboys, okay? Sorry. I'm a Dallas guy, so I have to make fun of them. I grew up in Chicago, and we have nothing to celebrate. But you can't pick up an instrument and go play at Carnegie Hall for the first time. Every single thing we do in life takes time, and they all generally work the same way. You start something new, you learn, you screw up a few times, you learn from that, and if you're smart and you're focused and you don't quit, you continue to advance. The same things are going to happen in your career, in your roles, in your leadership, and in your influence. So I need you to appreciate that advancement is that process that we're going through, and that these older people have been doing it a lot longer than you have. So our best strategies is to learn and understand from the older people. But when it comes to upskilling, it is not necessarily the responsibility of that organization to do it for you. It's your responsibility to be a part of that process. So I like how you guys were talking about, and many of us, we're talking about spending time together, going to lunch together. Younger people, there should not be a single day at your job, if possible, that you eat alone. You should be sitting around, making intentional lunch plans if possible to go and work with somebody so you can learn from them just by osmosis and being around them. Because that is a real thing that does happen when it comes to work relationships and building community and understanding the roles. Spend time with them. The greatest thing about the older people is they are oftentimes willing to help because somebody helped them get to where they are, and they're willing to return that favor, as long as we don't act like there's some obstacle that we have to get around, okay? So just to provide like a little bit of an illustration though, as we recognize like that we are going through different paths of change, as you know, in that regard, I like to use just this illustration to understand that younger people, like we can barely remember a time when things like these companies didn't exist. Google was founded in 1999, all the way to Uber going public in 2014. And sometimes that nature and that pace of change is different amongst the generations. That's okay. Older people, you probably should be sick to death of hearing people say that the world's changing faster than it ever has before. But oftentimes you are the ones that can remember a time when these companies didn't exist. So the world is moving a little bit faster today than it was in your youth. For the younger people, it's the only speed that we've known. And that's why we like it. That's why we've learned that we have to adapt and change and move quickly. But it brings us to a kind of an important sort of relation, and that is this relationship that we are all experiencing with time. Our perception of time can drastically impact our perception of the world and what's going on within it, as well as the people around us. And does anybody have like younger children, like maybe under the age of 5? Okay, awesome. Well, if you don't know this, older parents or people whose kids are out of college are going to say really, really cute things to you with the younger children. Because I think we kind of know this, like when you have like young kids, we always say things like, oh, the days are long. COVID kind of taught us that when we're trying to work and people are screaming in the background, things going on. But then as your kids get older, apparently the years are short. I don't know which one it is. You know, maybe it's both. But you older parents, you do tend to like tell these funny stories of cherish the younger years, you know, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. But I mean, like, what am I supposed to do in this moment? Like, am I supposed to be thinking about like, oh, she's going to grow up and change the world? I mean, just really quick, so you don't think I'm a horrible parent. This is like defense of myself so I don't get a call later. This is my daughter, Emerson. This was a few years ago. This was maybe 3 years ago. In fact, I know I take it back, it was right before the pandemic started because we had just left the gym. And at our gym, she had gone to the daycare. We had left. She had used the hand sanitizer as we left the daycare. And then we walked to the front of the building. And at this gym, this is one of those gyms where the main entrance, all of the cardio equipment is lined up on the second floor. And it was a pretty busy time at the gym, so everybody was on them staring down at the entrance. And as I was walking by with Emerson, there was another hand sanitizer machine by the front entrance. And so she used it again, and I was like, oh, that's fine. Maybe she missed a spot. And then she used it again, then a fourth time, and then a fifth time, and then a sixth time, and a seventh time. And at that point, we hadn't learned everything we had learned about hand sanitizer, so I actually thought the skin was going to start coming off of her bones. And so I thought maybe we should also just get on with our day. And so as I like politely tried to move her towards the door, she had one of the more massive meltdowns, at least I can remember, where she stuck out her hand and screaming for everybody on the cardio equipment to see, hand sanitizer! Hand sanitizer! Hand sanitizer! To the point where I just like kind of scooped her up like that and proceeded to walk out the door, where it continued as she held on to both sides of the door as we exit. And at least I did look up and catch some of the people on the cardio equipment smiling, like, I've been there, yeah. And it continued for another 15 minutes in the car. Finally get her strapped in, and you sit there, and I didn't know what else to do, so I took a picture. I may be a bad father for that. It's very possible. We'll see if this scarred her for life later. I don't know. What was probably the worst part was then I texted this picture to my wife, and I said, how's your day going? she said, don't do that again. so I done it. But also when I got home, I did try to sell her on eBay, but apparently that is against their terms of agreement, so don't do that. But my point about sharing that with you is that, yes, in those moments, I am absolutely not thinking about what's she going to grow up to be. Our relationship with time is very, very different, and it changes individually based on where you are in your work, in your life, in your personal situation. So unfortunately, though, what we often get stuck in is we don't realize that there is a balance we have to find, because you cannot only live in today's world and what's happening right now and the fires that are happening without thinking about where you're trying to go. What are you building towards? And oftentimes, we just get a little out of balance. So I think in order for us to find that, we have to understand where are we prioritizing our time. The last little exercise I'm going to ask you to do, and you can take this however you want, where you think about it personally, professionally, in your organization, as a leader, as a spouse, whatever you want. I want you to ask yourself, what are your most important priorities in life? And are you giving them the time that they need? So if you would, just take a moment by yourself. I will not ask you to share this. I just want you to write down what are the most important priorities to you as it currently stands for your situation in life. I'm just going to give you like a minute to do that. Our priorities should always, if we say they're a priority, they've got to take that first spot. And I'll share you just a very, very brief story, a personal story here. I mentioned the previous job I had. Having kids for me changed what I thought was drastically important. I always said, like, I was the type that would burn the midnight oil. I wanted to work the corporate ladder and all this sort of stuff. And when it comes to my working relationship with my bosses, they knew that was important because we had had conversations about what's important, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to go up here. I said, all right, I'll help you get there. It's going to take time. Here's what you need to do. Let's do it. But having kids changed it. I didn't necessarily realize it right away. About 2 years into my daughter's life, I had come home very, very late from work, about 7:30 at night. And I don't know if anybody else has ever done this before, but I had my laptop with me, and I walk in the front door, and I immediately put it on the kitchen table, and I open it up, and I hopped back into another couple of emails. And my wife comes to me carrying in the kitchen. She was holding one of our daughters. They're twins. I don't know which one it was. But she says, hey, like, do you think it could wait? They go to bed in about 30 minutes. And I said, yeah, of course. Like, put the laptop away. We go to we get the kids down for bed. I finish work later. And that night as we're laying in bed, she said, Matt, you are a great husband. You are a great father. Or at least that's what I heard her say. She's like, I don't think you realize how often you do that. You have said family is a priority. When you're here, be present. And for me, that was the sort of light bulb that my priorities were changing, and it was going to affect what I wanted from work. And so not shortly after that, I went and had that conversation with my boss, and I said, hey, you know what? I actually don't think I want to do this anymore. I think I'm happy right here for right now. There's some things I want to figure out. And I give her the most credit in the world because she was like, absolutely. What do you need from me? How can I help? It eventually led into what I do now. It also led towards a realization that I wanted to travel with my kids. So I don't encourage anybody else to do this, but for the last about 2 years, we stopped about a year ago, we went and traveled the country in this small little van, trying to see every state and show our kids the world before they reach an age where I don't think they want to hang out with us, as I'm told, like when they get to be teenagers. So we fulfilled something that was really important to our family, and I would not have been able to do that without those conversations that have to happen at work to understand where my priorities were and where eventually your teams, where their priorities are. So the reason I asked you to write down yours is because I need to make sure your time is aligning with it, but also as an encouragement to make sure you understand the people that are closest to you in your leadership structure. What are their priorities? And how do you help them understand right now what they need to be doing, what you can do as their leader, but also what are we working towards? Because your patience plan is going to drastically impact how we approach work. And I want to make sure as a leader I understand it, and I hope you individually understand that for yourself as well too. We're getting close to time here, so I appreciate the engagement, the interactions that y'all have had. But I would be remiss if I don't just at least leave with this small little bit, that we have to recognize that in the conversations that we have around change, around the ideas that the young people have in the workforce, we're going to get some right and we are going to get some wrong. So we have definitely made some wrong, bad ideas and choices as a community. I don't want us individually to talk about our failures. So collectively, I just want to look at a few collective bad ideas that we have had in life. The first is the laser disc. This was one of my favorites. Does anybody in the room have a laser disc at one point in life? I know young people don't know what this is, but you'd think it was like, you think with a DVD that big, it could fit like 19 movies on the thing. But no, actually, this was a product where halfway through your movie, you had to get up and flip the darn thing over, which is why it swept the nation in the early 90s, and dozens of people, including a couple in this room, bought them. So that was one idea. There was also Pets.com. Who remembers this one? One of the biggest tech failures of the first internet boom. They opened their doors in August of 1998 and closed it in November of 2000 at a loss of over $300 million. I don't know how you burn through cash that fast, but I would like to try. It'd be a lot of fun. Or who in the room still has a MySpace account? Anybody? You still have one? You can still log in? Yes, sir. Are you in a band? Facebook followed. Well, I know, but I just didn't know if you were in a band that nobody listens to or something.
I went looking for pictures that I had not seen, and it led me down the trail.
That's great. Or maybe, is Tom your friend? Okay, all right, good. He knows Tom. That's good. But look, back in 2006, it was the most trafficked website in the world, which is why News Corp, the company on Fox News, bought it for $580 million. And I'm not blaming them for it, because every company was trying to. But they had to, 6 years later, sell it to Justin Timberlake and a bunch of his investor friends for $35 million. Okay? So when it comes to the ideas that the young people are sharing with you, yes, I recognize. And young people, as you share these ideas, if the older people don't love it, it's because the more you've been around, the more you've seen fads like these things come and go. And it means that as you get older, we're going to get burned by things. We're going to be a little bit more cautious. That's okay. That's part of our process. When we are talking about upskilling, we have to recognize that we're going to try some things and they won't work, and that's okay. It's also a realization, at least I think, for the younger people, that not every idea you have is going to be a good one, and that's okay. Some of them will be awesome. I will leave you with these last three, because we do also have to recognize that we all can bring something to the table, and some of the ideas the young people have today may be a good place to start. The older people, we forget that. We forget some of our failures in the past. So I'll just show you some so that we can remember that we were not always right. There was the example from Scientific American in 1909 where people said the automobile had practically reached the limit of its development. And that was before cars had roofs on them, people, let alone XM radios and cup holders and butt-warming seats. If you really think of any young photo of people back in the 1900s, I don't think they were ever smiling. It's probably because their butts were cold. That's my belief. And then you've got Steve Ballmer, CEO of Microsoft in 2007. There's no chance it's going to gain any significant market share. I think he was wrong. But this is personally my favorite. The Beatles have no future in show business. This was from Decca Recording Company in 1962 after they auditioned from them and they chose not to sign them. They were one of 12 or 13 different record companies, every single one of them to make the exact same decision, and every single one of them being a billion-dollar mistake. So I am not here to debate your musical interests. Beatles aren't really my thing, but I understand that a lot of people like their music, and regardless of that, they were global icons. What I will not sit here, though, and listen to anybody tell me is how these four people were ever sex symbol heartthrobs. Look at them. No, please, look at them. My brother would have fit right in. It can't work, okay? So as we close, what I would just ask you all to consider is hopefully we had some fun here today. Hopefully we had a little bit of personal reflection on what we can do as leaders and learn from each other. But it's also just a recognition, folks, that at the end of the day, if we are going to continue to have this generational conversation, we have to be willing to meet each other somewhere in the middle. And that requires conversation. That requires us realizing that we are going to make a choice of what we do with it. We can continue to make the choice that the other side is wrong and they're annoying and I don't like dealing with these young people, or we can continue to make the choice that the older people, should just retire and get out of our way, or we can make the choice to do something differently about it. And if I can implore you to do something different, to recognize that all of these things are choices that we have at the ability to make, and we own those choices, then I think the world will be a better place. So thank you so much for your time today. I'm looking forward to spending some time with you this evening as well. So if there's anything you want to talk about specifically, let's do that. But thank you again for your time.